So I've chosen this location because all the intersecting trails and the sandy mineral site that's here, that's had all the coyotes in here. We got a lot of sign, a lot of scat, a lot of tracks, and anywhere where there's water, you're going to find coyotes and cats in cat country. So I try to always start with my hole. That way I've got something to go off of and I know right where it's going to be. I got a mark on my driver there that's set at 9 or 10 inches and lets me kind of know right where I want my pan to be. So I know where my hole's going to be. I usually offset to the right a little bit, but we got a north wind, so I'm probably going to put my pan right in this area. And what I normally do if I feel like I'm going to lose track is I'll mark it, get my hammer out and dig the hole, get this turf out of the way a little bit. Good thing about these little 550s is they're really small. You don't need a whole big hole. We got a lot of good grass in here too, so. Get shit a little bit deeper on this side. And what I like to do is make sure I get a spot big enough for the trap, because I want the trap to be pretty level with the ground on a flat set. You're not trying to get them to step down into it. And then I take a few good swipes in the ground and kind of waller out a piece for my chain so it can sit underneath the trap without causing the trap to rock. Now in Oklahoma, I'm not usually too worried about how far I go in with my stake, because the clay style dirt we have here pretty much holds all the way up to 4 or 5 inches. And I've never had a coyote pull a trap out yet. Two-legged coyote maybe, but not a four-legged coyote. And just get a spot just big enough for the trap. And I'm reusing traps that I had maybe made catches with or had buried previously in the season. And I'm not worried about it at all. These coyotes come in here for the scent that they smell, or the cats, and they really don't care. Bang that chain down in there real good, and then get your trap in there where it's not going to rock. So you can see I got a little movement on this side. Pick this lever up, had some dirt there, get that grass out of there, try and set it where there's no movement there. So the only movement I should have is on the loose jaw now, and I'm going to pack that in real good so that doesn't happen. Doesn't take a whole lot. It's not rocket science. You just want to make sure that your trap's not going to rock. And when I come in, I'm going to pack in some fresh dirt, and that's going to take all the rest of it out should there be any movement. I always use a pan cover. Said it before. And I try to always use peat moss. Sometimes early in the season, if it's really dry, I don't mess with the peat moss. But I'm not a fan of filling up the trap jaws with dirt. I've done it before. My first season, I used a pan cover and just dirt. And once I figured out that I had, some misses because the dirt would eventually work its way underneath, or we'd get rain and it would cause the dirt to flood up underneath the pan cover, or sometimes pan cover gets old because it's been there long enough and it breaks off the top of the pan, what ends up happening is your trap doesn't want to go off whenever a coyote steps on it. So I use peat moss, and I don't care if it's wet. I'm going to use antifreeze because we got a lot of freeze coming in the future. Right now we're pretty freeze thaw, maybe 30, 31 degrees overnight with a wind chill. Brings it down to the 20s a little bit, and the top will freeze pretty good. So I keep antifreeze going, and this antifreeze that I use reacts with the moisture, and the moisture inside the peat moss, it's going to start to dry out. It's going to burn it off. Sometimes you'll put peat moss in here like this, and you'll come back a week and a half later and you'll blow on your trap and peat moss and dirt will just fly. Everything else around it's damp. So that stuff works. A lot of people don't like the antifreeze because of the rust problems that it can cause with the trap, but I don't normally pre-rust my traps anyway, so I just let them get rusted in the ground. Coyotes don't care if your trap's rusted or what color it is. They're going to get in there. The only thing that's really going to dig up your traps generally is coons. Not that coyotes won't do it, but coons do it more often. And it really has to do with the dirt. You see how that rocked a little bit right there? I want to get inside this jaw here. This lever. I want to push something down in there next to it. Keep that from rocking. Take all that rock out of there. You want to make sure whenever you're bedding your trap that you hold the other side of it too as you put it in. And you don't necessarily have to see the movement in it, but you can feel the movement in it. So now that we've done that, we're good. And I like to kind of keep it as flat as I can, blend that in real good, and then put a little bit of the local dirt on top. Not a lot. You know where the pan's at. I know where the pan's at. The goal is there's nothing underneath that pan, so when the coyote steps on it, it's a free space, a void of air, and all they do is push it down and get caught. And as long as you got antifreeze in there, it won't freeze up. A lot of you guys, the southeast, probably never have to deal with this at all. So, put a little bit of grass in here. You get a lot of short turf right here, so you don't really have a whole lot to work with. But it doesn't take a lot. And I'm really targeting cats. I just want the set to be workable by coyotes. The coyote fur is gone. It's not doing any good this year. I already wore out the coyotes I could when it came to fur. So at the end of the day, that's what I want the set to look like. That's how it needs to be on a flat set. Blended pretty well in there, because at night, you know, they don't see as good at night as they do during the day, even though they got pretty good eyes. And right now the moon's up real high, so they can see pretty good. But for the most part, they're not going to really know the difference between the blending at night. It's going to be in the daylight, they're going to see it real good. So we got our hole, and I'm going to use some of Cletus Richard's bobcat gland and just some urine. Well, I say that, I'm also going to put some Pecos on it. So see what I got over here. There we are. I like to get a stick to put in the hole instead of using my bait knife or whatever. Just a little bit of land layer on the top of the rock or near the rock, and then down in the hole. You want the most of the lure to be down in the hole. And then the Pecos, I rub that on the front of the rock real good, because you want to get the cats. The dogs are just as attracted to this as the cats are, but you want the cats to get in here and kind of rub their face on that rock, so they stick around long enough to get caught. And I always offset just a little bit, as you saw. You know, my trap pan's here rather than here. True north is this direction. So I got my trap pan here, just offset just a little bit, because early on in my trapping career, I realized that I was missing a lot of animals, and their paw print would be to the right of my trap pan, usually on the lever of my trap. So in order to mitigate that, I started offsetting to the right, listening to better men than me, and it really works. It works a lot. So just urine, really kind of soak that hole down in there with that glandler, and then that's going to be my finished flat set on this side. Now I'll reset everything and move you over there so you can see my next flat set.